Our Healthy Hearts session. Today is the 17th of July, and I just quickly Googled to see if it's actually the hottest day or it was yesterday. I guess it is the hottest day is it in history? Yes, I want to believe in history. There's a few minutes ago, we're just chatting amongst ourselves, trying to find out how we are all coping. And we wondered if we should have postponed this to next week, but it's still okay. We always have these videos. So if you're not able to join the Zoom session, you can still watch it later on. Okay, so today we have a very interesting topic, very important. A lot of us in our communities struggle with one food allergy or the other. Now, there's so many of these food allergens, and I know that we cannot discuss this just in one session. So our guest speaker, Alistair Kumi, one of our specialist dietitians, is here to take us through some of these food allergens. And I like the fact that he's just focusing on one specific one that really affects us as a community. So lactose intolerance, milk, and things related to that. So please, wherever you are, send in your questions and we will do our best to address them on this session. Alistair Kumi, if you are ready, please, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hiba. So yes, just as Hiba was saying, food allergies is such a huge topic. It's a specialist area all on its own. And because there are so many different allergens, we've decided today to focus on just one. But I wanted to introduce sort of the topic of food allergies and make people aware of what the 14 key allergens are, and help to highlight the difference between what a food allergy is versus a food intolerance, because I'm sure many of us, in time have had a food that maybe you've had some sensitivities to, or maybe some adverse reactions to, and you haven't been completely sure about whether it's an allergy or whether it's just an intolerance to it, or whether it was just a bad reaction on the day. So we're going to be taking a look at that in a little more detail, and I've put together some really helpful slides to go through that. So I'm gonna share that now. Yeah. So CAHN team, let me know once you can see those slides.
Yes, we can.
Brilliant. Okay, so today's session sort of titled "Getting All Your Nutrients Even with Food Allergies." So as you know, when you do have an allergy, your knee-jerk reaction is to come away from that particular food item, and sometimes those food items can contain some really essential nutrients, and when you don't really know what to replace that food with and where to get those essential nutrients, you can run into a few issues. So today we're going to help to just demystify and debunk some of those issues, just so you guys can look forward to a healthier future despite any intolerances or allergies that you might have. So just introducing myself once again, I'm Alistair Kumi. I'm a diabetes specialist dietitian, but I'm a specialist dietitian nonetheless, with quite a broad sort of history and background in various areas of dietetics, including clinical nutrition support, healthcare of the elderly, renal disease, obesity. So I've seen sort of quite a few things in my time and had some exposure to quite a lot. So so that's what sort of prepared me to do today's talk. So why am I speaking about this? Well, I've sort of said that a couple of times already, but I'm bringing it home again. Food allergies and intolerances, they carry so many similar symptoms, but will have very different effects on both your short and long-term health. If we're aware of those differences, we can prevent unnecessary restrictions on very useful food groups. And lastly, for anyone who does have an allergy, this talk will help you to address what a potential deficiency could be, and help you to sort of overcome that. So a small disclaimer that I've sort of put in small print at the bottom is that This presentation is ultimately going to give you general support and signposting for dietary management of food allergies and intolerances. And it's just been presented for educational purposes. So if you're very, very concerned about food allergies and you have a lot of questions, this is a good forum for getting awareness, but the best place to get support is actually through your GP surgery, and you have to specifically ask them to refer you into the allergy service. So at this current point in time in the NHS, the allergy services, they do run a little bit of a waiting time, but and that all depends on what the potential allergen is. So so just wanted to put that out there for you guys. So yeah, what is the difference between an allergy and an intolerance? So I've got a little sort of infographic up here that's basically splitting things up into actually three categories. So the first category is looking at sort of food preference. So you get some people who are actually super tasters, so people who are able to pick up certain compounds, pick up certain tastes in particular foods, meaning that they just have they experience different they experience different flavors of certain foods, meaning that it affects their preference of it. So it can bring on things like bad taste or annoyance or dissatisfaction. And then sort of moving further along, you've got food intolerances. So the reactions with those can be quite mild and go all the way up to a sort of a moderate sort of reaction. The symptoms are usually immediate or fairly delayed. With some intolerances, people will feel maybe sick or feel ill. They may have migraines on the other side. They may have, fatigue and tiredness. They may have bloating or diarrhea and things like that. And then moving on to food allergies, their reactions are actually quite mild. They go from mild, but they can be very, very, very severe, and in some cases actually lead up to death. So the symptoms you can get there are things like irritated skin or an irritated gut, which leaves you with discomfort for quite a long time. You can get, in some cases, difficulty breathing, and some people will have anaphylaxis where their throat gets so inflamed that it closes up and it stops air from getting through. So usually to overcome that person would need to use like an adrenaline injection or an EpiPen in order to bring some air back into the airway by forcing their nervous system to calm down after that allergic reaction has caused a flare-up of their immune system. So with food allergies, that they affect the immune system directly, and they can be caused by very, very, very small particles of that allergen. So I don't know if anyone's ever known anyone with a nut allergy. Sometimes being on the other side of the room and eating a peanut butter sandwich can trigger that allergic response to happen in someone who does have a very serious nut allergy. So that's how severe it is. Just little compounds floating in the air can actually cause that immune system to flare up, and it's an automatic response that can be very, very, very severe, and as I mentioned before, in some cases fatal. So if you have an allergy to a food, so if it's a confirmed, diagnosed, hard and fast allergy, you've had an anaphylactic reaction to it, it's very, very wise to just avoid that thing completely. You don't really want to play around and try to see if you can try it today and try to just avoid it completely. Food intolerances, they tend to impact the digestive system first, and they have less serious symptoms. So that food may still be able to be eaten in really, really small amounts without many negative effects. So a good example of this sort of interplay between food intolerance and food allergy is cow's milk. So with cow's milk protein allergy, if someone's allergic to milk, they'll be allergic to the cow's milk proteins. So any milk, any sort of milk or cow's milk product that they have, whether it be custard or ice cream or fresh milk or yogurt, is gonna cause a really, really adverse and severe reaction. Whereas if someone is lactose intolerant, they are essentially sensitive to the sugar that's found in milk called lactose. So if they were to have a milk-based product, it may not cause an immediate reaction if they have small amounts of it. It's usually when they have higher volumes of it, that's when that adverse reaction might start to take place. And that person may be able to get away with actually some milk containing products that actually have low lactose amounts. For example, Greek yogurt or cheddar cheese, which actually contains quite low amounts of lactose. Yep. So I'll just sort of move on. So I just wanted to sort of put on a spread the key allergens that are out there. So obviously we have 14 key allergens, and by law, these allergens have to be put on food labeling. So last year, I think there's a slide coming up about this. Last year, there was a change in government legislation. Before, the food companies, didn't necessarily have to put all their allergens on pre-packaged goods. So things like sandwiches and things like that, they didn't necessarily have to put all the allergens on there, but now by law it has to be done, just to prevent unnecessary fatalities. So I'm not sure if you all heard about that young family and their young daughter who had an anaphylactic reaction to I think it was sesame seeds inside of a pret-a-manger sandwich, and it caused her to have an anaphylactic sort of shock, and and pass away on the plane. And it could have been completely avoided if her family were made aware of the fact that that sandwich had sesame seeds in it. So as you can see here, sesame is one of the 14 key allergens. So you've got gluten found in wheat, barley. You will find gluten in some varieties of oats. It's not, there isn't a lot of gluten in oats. However, because oats and and wheat tend to be grown in the same sort of pastures and are milled in the same sort of areas, that cross-contamination can take place. And as we said with allergies, all it takes is a really tiny amount to trigger even a very severe reaction. Obviously, you've got eggs there as well, and fish. You've got crustaceans like lobster and crab. You've got peanut, which is quite a sort of almost a mainstream allergen. You've also got soya. Then there's celery up there. There's milk. There's tree nuts. So those include things like Brazil nuts, almonds, cashew, pistachio. There's mustard and mustard seed. And then at the bottom here, we have sulfur dioxide. So that's usually used as a preservative. So you'll find that preservative in some wines. You'll find it sometimes in sort of like cheese or meats and things like that as well. You might even find it in some chocolates, and some people are very sensitive to this particular compound. You've got your mollusks, so things like clams and shelled fish, and then you've got lupin, which is kind of like a kind of bean that can trigger allergies too. So in terms of the food allergy types, you've got your IgE mediated food allergy. So these are basically IgE basically stands for, it's an immunoglobulin, so immunoglobulin, which is like a small sort of molecule in the body that is part of your immune response that does a lot of signaling. And with IgE mediated food allergies, that they tend to be linked to the quite serious adverse effects when people do have allergies. So there's a really high risk of anaphylaxis and sort of your throat closing up with this particular allergy type. Their symptoms tend to manifest immediately, just because obviously you have quite a few of these immune cells sort of floating around, and they're very sensitive. So the second that allergen pops into the system, the immune system wakes up straight away and it causes an immediate automatic response. So the symptoms will manifest in seconds to minutes. So nut allergies tend to fall in that particular category. And then you have your non-IgE mediated food allergies. So the difficulty with these is there is a level of sort of pathology with them. where there are some sensitivities and other immune cells tend to pick up those particular allergens. But they are very, very difficult to diagnose because the symptoms can take several hours to develop. So between 2 to 24 hours after being in contact with that allergen. So if you think about how many foods you've eaten, in a day, and you don't get that sort of allergic reaction until maybe the next day around that time, it's very difficult to underpin exactly what caused that. So usually those responses that come with non-IgE mediated food allergies are not as severe. They tend to be more in the mild category. But that being said, it doesn't mean that over time someone couldn't develop anaphylaxis, or their throat closing up, or hives, or difficulty breathing, and things like that. And then the last type is mixed IgE and non-IgE mediated food allergies. So when I was taking a look at the NHS conditions website, because there is a lot of controversy with this particular area, because both symptom types occur. You get like the slow builders, but then you also get some things that happen immediately. So you may get a rash that develops immediately, but then maybe like gastric discomfort that comes 24 to 48 hours later. So once again, really, really, really difficult to pinpoint and diagnose. And just to scare everyone further, with regards to food allergies, they can manifest at any time, anywhere. So, and it can happen with any food. So you could be able to tolerate maybe cow's milk protein for maybe 20, 30, even 40 years of your life, and then all of a sudden become allergic to it. Why this happens, nobody knows, and they are really doing research into this to find out exactly what is driving driving these sort of allergic reactions, or the rise in allergies. If you were to ask me if there are more allergies now than there were maybe 20 or 30 years ago, it would be a difficult question to answer as well, only because you've got two arguments. You've got the argument of is it that we're screening more and we have more knowledge, so we're able to pinpoint certain things that are happening, or maybe we have a much broader diet. So when even if you think about 30 years ago, there wasn't a lot of food moving around, even in like sort of cultural spheres. So people tended to keep to their same sorts of foods. So the risk of of sort of eating a food that you weren't used to was quite low, meaning that maybe the risk of a hidden allergy to a food that you don't know also wasn't there. So it's just one of those ones where there are known knowns and there are known unknowns, and what causes food allergies is one of those known unknowns. We have no idea. So just wanted to chuck that in there, just to scare everyone, keep you all on your toes. But that being said, if something is to come up, there is also a lot of support. So it's not that you would have this allergy and have to live the rest of your life in fear or danger that nothing would improve. So in terms of sort of general sort of symptoms with food allergies, they can affect different areas of the body at the same time. Symptoms include an itchy sensation inside the mouth, throat, or ears, a raised itchy red rash or hives, swelling of the face around the eyes, lips, tongue, and roof of the mouth. Some people vomit straight away, and in very serious cases, a person that has a severe allergic reaction, such as anaphylaxis, will be in quite a life-threatening state. So if that happens and you notice that someone's suffering from something like that, so they're struggling to breathe, they can't swallow or speak, or they're feeling very dizzy or faint, ask for an ambulance and tell the operator that you think the person's having a severe allergic reaction. So sort of moving forward, when it comes to spotting your allergens, as I mentioned before, the UK Food Information Amendment, came into being on the 1st of October last year, and it requires all food businesses to provide full ingredients lists and allergen labeling on foods that are pre-packaged for direct sale on the premises. So if you go into any store now and you want to buy a sandwich or even, buy a fruit that's been packaged, once there's a label on it, they have to in bold put what the particular allergens are. And they also have to give allergy advice. So, on this packet of chicken and vegetable broth, they've mentioned for all allergens, including cereals containing gluten, and the ingredients list is mentioned in bold, just to let everyone know that allergens are there in bold. And they also will put an advisory saying that even if these foods are not going to contain a particular allergen, at least they'll let you know if it's been prepared in an area where those allergens are as well, just to keep you safe. And in the UK, all food businesses are supposed to let you know about all 14 allergens anyway. All right. So today's allergen focus, because there are so many. So if I was to even go back to the slide, these are just the key ones, and there are many, many, many more. But I just wanted to focus on milk and on milk specifically, just because milk is a very key source of iodine. There's a reason I've mentioned iodine first, so I'll come back to that. Calcium, zinc, vitamin D, vitamin B12, and then also provides the macronutrients, protein, fat, and carbohydrates. So the reason I mentioned iodine first is just because in Afro-Caribbean populations, especially in women of childbearing age, so anywhere from, let's call it 19 to, we've seen women at 49 having babies too, so anywhere from 19 to 49, there is that, that there is already that risk of of carrying deficiencies, and a lot of research is going into just what is exacerbating that deficiency in iodine, especially. And milk is a very 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 key source of iodine and milk containing products. So just wanted to focus on milk, as it was something that's quite prevalent to the African and Caribbean community as well. And as mentioned earlier, there's a very distinct difference between cow's milk protein allergy and lactose intolerance. Cow's milk protein allergy can lead to anaphylaxis. And in babies, it's actually one of the most common triggers of anaphylaxis. So, for any mother watching, or for anyone, who's reared children before, who's had to, sort of feed them, bottle formulas that contain cow's milk protein, or have even breastfed, and have cow's milk protein in their diet. That's one of the things that will be, sort of on watch for. And there are really good services for cow's milk protein allergy management in babies and infants. And one of the interesting things as well about allergies too is, especially with cow's milk protein allergy in babies, is babies can actually may not always be allergic to cow's milk protein for the rest of their life. So there is something called the milk ladder. So what happens is, after they've gone a period without that cow's milk protein, then they're put on a trial, or the milk ladder, where they're basically given very small amounts of, let's just say, chemically adjusted milk protein. So one of the ways that it is chemically adjusted is after cooking milk or baking it, like in a cake or in a biscuit, the protein structure changes. So it's not always recognized as the same allergen. And as a result of that, babies are able to give it, babies or small infants or toddlers are able to give it a try and see how they tolerate it. And then if they're able to tolerate it, then they'll move to the next stage up the ladder, which would be maybe like a custard, or like a hot cooked milk, to see how they get on. But that's me digressing. So that's just a little note about young children and babies and cow's milk protein allergy. If it's found in someone who's an adult, the likelihood of you not having that cow's milk protein allergy anymore is not this, is reduced. So it's not the same, and you're likely to continue carrying it through. When it comes to lactose intolerance, it actually allows the consumer to ingest the milk, and during the digestion process, the enzymes that your body basically needs to break down the lactose are either limited. So it's an enzyme called lactase. Your body is probably not producing enough of it, So because the lactase is limited, what happens is some of this lactose goes undigested. It sits inside your gut as it's passing through, and because it's quite a chunky sugar, what happens is the bacteria in your gut will ferment this sugar, and even as it's being fermented at times, because it's a chunky sugar, it draws water into the bowel. So it's drawing all this water into the bowel. Your gut bacteria are fermenting it, and when they're fermenting it, then they produce all this extra gas. So it ends up leaving people with a lot of gas buildup and bloating, and some of the symptoms that come as a result of that are flatulence, burping, diarrhea, constipation, cramps. But it doesn't mean that that the lactose is directly harming you. It just means that your body's just not processing it as well. So it's not it's not useful for you to have it in that particular format. So I can speak about this with a lot of confidence, because I'm someone who has lactose intolerance, and for a long period, a good sort of I think at birth or in my infant stages, I had lactose intolerance then, and then I was able to go onto the milk ladder as a young child. I was able to tolerate milk and yogurts and things like that again. So I was having that for a long time. And then it was in my early 20s that I had to start coming away from it, because I was getting, these sort of symptoms from cow's milk products that contain lactose. So I've had to swap onto lactose-free sort of milks and treats. And then, to get my calcium and zinc and other things, I drink quite a bit of soya milk as a good alternative. So I'm going to be getting onto that. So, if you have, a dairy intolerance, it's not necessary to completely avoid cow's milk if you do not have a formally diagnosed allergy. And that's because by avoiding, there is that risk of missing out on the vital nutrients that come from dairy and dairy products. So my dietitian top tips for that are: look for lactose-free versions of milk first, and see how you get on. So there are some people with lactose intolerance. It comes in varying amounts, because, as you know, if you're not producing much of that lactase enzyme, there are some people who may be producing 50% less, some may be producing 25% less, meaning that they could probably get away with actually having a little bit of cow's milk, or cow's milk products or dairy, without it causing an adverse reaction. But once they get past that quota, that's where all those symptoms start to come in. So that's something to be aware of. But going for lactose-free options just helps you to avoid any embarrassment of walking around with bloating or with a bit of fartiness. So the next thing is, I recommend sort of purchasing lactose-free Greek yogurts if you do like yogurt, as Greek yogurt has a lot less lactose than regular yogurt, milk, and even ice cream. And that's because in the straining process that they use to make it, and the fermentation, the live and active bacterial cultures that are used to make it help to break down the lactose inside that particular yogurt, making it easier for people to digest, which makes Greek yogurt one of the most palatable yogurts out there. And then if you are going for alternative milks, when you have lactose intolerance, so things like oat milk or rice milk, or soya milk, at the very least, make sure they are fortified with calcium and vitamin D. I think now a lot of the milks on the market are really striving to keep up with competition, just because, if your milk doesn't contain calcium and vitamin D, people are just looking at it like, well, I don't really want to drink oat water that doesn't give me any other benefits. I'd rather drink something that is giving me, those missing nutrients that I'm missing out on. So if you have an allergy, as I said, it's very prudent to completely avoid cow's milk and cow's milk products, such as ice cream, custard, cream cakes, yogurt. The top tips are just look for dairy alternatives. So if you're not allergic to soya, because some people after having cow's milk protein allergy may have some sensitivities to soya. So just, if you're not allergic to it, the reason I recommend soya so highly is because it provides a really strong set of amino acids that almost mimic the profile of proteins in the milk. So it's really, really, really good for those who are trying to build muscle in the gym, or those trying to maintain weight, or those trying to maintain muscle mass. It's got really, really good protein in there. One that is quite similar in the milk profile. When going for alternative milks, make sure at the very least they are fortified with calcium and vitamin D once again. And look for plant sources of calcium and some alternative sources of vitamin D. And lastly, do not be shy with supplementation. So if you do have an actual cow's milk protein allergy, I would recommend getting a calcium supplement or a vitamin D and a vitamin D supplement, just to make sure that you're not missing out on all of those essential bits. Because as you know, when it comes to calcium intake, I think there's a slide on that. Yeah, that's it. When it comes to calcium intake, all adults lay down their peak bone mass, I think at the age of 29. So, or it could be before that. So yeah, well, it's just in your sort of let's just say early to late 20s. And once you've built that bone mass, that's as much bone as you're going to have for the rest of your life. So you're just going to be maintaining that bone mass for the rest of your life. And in order to maintain it, you need to have an adequate calcium intake. So, the adult requirements for calcium in the UK are about 700 milligrams of calcium a day. And vitamin D is about 10 micrograms. So I've just put my sort of top foods, that contain quite a bit of calcium. So, you've got 25 grams of cheese here. It's got 180 milligrams of calcium. You've got your cow's milk. So that's just 100 mils of it, contains 128. A very small, sort of kiddie petit falou pot of yogurt contains 137. And then you've got other things as well. Like, you've got 100 grams of spinach, contains 99 milligrams of calcium. 10 whole almonds contains 92. And 100 mils of soya milk contains 120. So it's very, very similar, the soya milk to the cow's milk. And then lastly, the note is, if you are taking calcium supplements, avoid taking high doses. So more than 1.5 milligrams of, the calcium a day, because this could lead to stomach pain and diarrhea. And then in some people, it can lead to sort of the buildup of sort of stone formation in their kidneys and things like that as well. So the last is with your vitamin D. How to get vitamin D from food sources. You've got eggs there that contain quite a bit. You only need 10 micrograms a day. And in this country, it's quite difficult to get vitamin D. So we've had some brilliant weather. Some may argue it's been too hot. I think it's been perfect. And with that kind of heat that that we've been getting, and the sunlight that we've been getting, it's just a few months in the year. So 4 months in the year we get access to that sunlight that allows our skin to create vitamin D for us. In the other periods of the year, we're just not getting it. So it's been recommended that all adults of African, Caribbean, South Asian backgrounds should be taking 10 micrograms of vitamin D all year round. And here are some extra foods that that also contain sort of vitamin D. That's essential for helping with bone formation and helping with inflammation. So there are a lot of benefits with all of that. So I've just dropped some references. So these are some really, really, really strong references, actually. So there's things from, if you were to go on the World Allergy Organization and just type in food allergy, you'll get quite a few things, quite a bit of information. If you're still confused about what to do with allergies and intolerances, the American Academy of Allergy, Asthma and Immunology also have a really good resource on differentiating a food intolerance and a food allergy. And the NHS also has brilliant stuff. So as I was saying before, if you're worried about allergies and you're eating certain foods that are making you react in a particular way, by all means, let your GP know and ask them to refer you into the allergy service. And sometimes even in the interim, they're able to refer you in to see a dietitian if they're really worried about your nutritional status. So you will be able to see someone in the interim. Right, and that's everything on sort of food allergies. So I'll stop it right there. And yeah, I just sort of open up the room for any questions anyone might have. But if you're also happy, like I said, your GP is there as a really good port of call for managing allergies and queries about allergies that you have too.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you very much, Alistair. Just straight to the point, concise, evidence-based, as always. Yes, we don't have a big group today. Do we have any questions at all on today's topic?
Well, one thing I did want to mention is I've left allergies wide open because obviously we've just focused on one specific area. Like there are so many areas that we could go into. So, any other time, like we can open up that topic further into some of the more novel areas, like seasonal allergies to certain foods. So there are some foods that actually you can have tropical or seasonal allergies to. So just wanted to just put that out there as something that we might be able to discuss, because that happens a lot in Africans and Caribbeans with tropical fruit and things like that too.
Right. Now that you mentioned that it happens a lot, even with lactose intolerance, do you have any ideas why it happens a lot within our community? Any thoughts? Do you know if there's any research that says anything in particular?
So what they are saying is it's with its regards to a genetic mutation with gut formation. So everyone's gut, produces the lactase enzyme, lactase enzyme, which helps to digest the lactose in milk. And we've seen that, in Africans especially, like that risk of not having as many lactase enzymes is a lot higher than in other populations. So everyone is losing lactase enzyme year by year as the years of life go on. So it could mean that you could really tolerate lactose well now, but then maybe in your 80s, you may not be able to tolerate it as well. You may have some sensitivities like diarrhea, burping, flatulence, and things like that.
Right.
But yeah, but that's all we know. That's all we know. Yeah, but you need to do the research.
We do. We have to find people to help us do the research in this area to answer these questions for our community.
That's it.
There's a question that has been sent to me that says, can it be cured?
Do you know? I was reading papers on this. They are, for some things, they're doing research on, what do they call it? Allergen immunotherapy. So for where it's, but it's not quite for food. They're doing it on people who have allergic rhinitis to like dust allergies and hay fever and really bad pollen allergies. So they're actually doing an immunotherapy to see they're actively testing it, to see if it can help. And obviously if it can, then that would be transferable to food allergies as well. But it's such a novel area, and as with all of these things, depending on who it's affecting and how bad that particular effect is on the wider population, is how much energy there's going to be behind the research. So the research is, is as Hiba will say, it's novel at best.
I don't know if we have any master students here who would want to take this up for research.
Oh, it would be a good one.
Yeah, that would be a good one. We still have a lot of time, and I forgot to say this when we started, that we are not having Orlando today. Yes. And so, yes, we're just having the nutrition session and then we call it a day. So please let us know what your thoughts are, comments, feedback, any questions for, okay. You can hear me because someone said unmute your mic. Well, yeah, you can hear me, right?
Hi, I've got a question.
Okay.
Following up on what you said about lactose intolerance, I understand if for adults who at a certain age become lactose intolerant, perhaps from 60, 70. But what's your take on a young adult becoming temporarily lactose intolerant?
So it's an interesting phrase you use there, temporary lactose intolerance. Usually, once you've developed that, intolerance to lactose, what's happened is, your level of lactase has gone down somewhat. So whether it's gonna go back to the way it was before is very, very, very unlikely. And actually, the risk of it developing further is actually much more likely. I'm someone who suffers from lactose intolerance. So there was a period of time in my when I was 21, I was able to eat regular Greek yogurt and ice cream, no issues. And then I think over a period of 6 months, I just noticed that started changing. I was bloating all the time, and it was really uncomfortable bloating. And actually, by making that switch to, at that time on the market, there weren't a lot of lactose-free options. So I had to make that hard switch to soya milk, which made me so sad, because I loved, having my yogurt, as one of my snacks. And after making that switch onto soya milk, the symptoms eased immediately. Like I had absolutely none, and I was quite shocked. And so I've been having this sort of sweetened soya milk as a way of introducing me to that particular area. And now I'm able to even have the unsweetened sort of soya milk in my teas and coffees and things like that as well, with no issues. I hope that gives you a bit of insight about sort of lactose intolerance.
Yes, it does. But do you know what could be the possible cause of becoming lactose intolerant at a younger adult age? Because I remember seeing someone one time, and then we thought it was an infection or something, but apparently it wasn't an infection. So that ruled out the infection. So I don't know if you think of anything else.
Yeah, honestly, it is a good question, because even for me, there were always those signs that maybe I was going to be there. So I come from a family where, my father has lactose intolerance, his father had lactose intolerance. And when I was a baby, I had cow's milk protein allergy and lactose intolerance as well. It's just that I was able to come up the milk ladder and tolerate it a lot better. And then into my adult years, when that lactase came down, that was it. I haven't been able to go back. But I thank God for all those lactose-free treats they have now. Like, they have this lactose-free Greek yogurt that they do in certain supermarkets, which is brilliant. And I'm able to eat symptom-free. But yeah, so so the answer to your question is, we just don't know. We just don't know. We just don't know. Could it be genetic? It's up to the researchers to really get the evidence and bring that to the forefront and say, yeah, there is a genetic link. For example, if your father has lactose intolerance, you're 50% likely to develop it as well. And then we can physically say that. But until then, yeah, I can't say what causes it.
Stephen, is that okay? Me? Okay, all right. He's responded. He's
very good. Very good.
I like what you said about, saying that we thank God there's a lot of other products. So you shouldn't really be deficient in any nutrients if you have to go off a particular food because it is a food allergy to you. There's so much out there, and those are some of the foods that Alistair highlighted for us. Could it be because wheat and milk weren't really part of our genetic makeup pre-colonial era? An interesting one.
No, definitely. So if I was to put another disclaimer out, it is that when it comes to wheat allergy, there is, you've got two sort of forms. So some people can have a hard and fast wheat allergy, but then you get other people who have celiac disease altogether. So it just means that with celiac disease, when they eat any food that contains wheat, then their immune cells that should be targeting the the wheat and causing that allergic reaction actually target and attack the gut instead. And in the gut, as you know, you've got these finger-like projections that move food along, called your villi. And obviously, when you have celiac disease, those immune cells actually blast those particular sort of villi, making them more flat. Meaning that when you do eat food, you're less likely to absorb certain things. And the main things you're less likely to absorb are, once again, calcium and iron in the gut. So there's a whole specialist area on celiac disease, and there are sort of specialist gastroenterology dietitians who are absolutely amazing and have a lot of resources about celiac disease and things like that. I guess because we have time, I could touch on the seasonal allergies. Mm-hmm. So something once again that hits the Afro-Caribbean community: hay fever. So there was some research done on hay fever and seasonal food allergies, and they found that people who had seasonal food allergies, who had hay fever, were more likely to develop tropical sensitivities to certain fruits. So a good example of that is living in the UK, having hay fever here, and then going to Ghana and then eating a mango in Ghana. So obviously mango is a tropical fruit, but the strain of mango that you grow in Ghana will have a very, very different set, of antigens on its surface. And actually it can trigger a very, very similar reaction to to having a hard and fast intolerance. But then if you were to eat a mango that was grown maybe in the UK or maybe in Spain, you wouldn't have the same issue. So that's another area of sort of interest. But then once again, I guess there isn't much heat underneath it, because when it comes to fruit, there are so many varieties of fruit, and you're less likely to get deficiencies because you can't have one type of fruit. There are so many more that you can go to. So people will just advise you avoid those fruits and avoid those sort of seasonal fruits, and then move on to others.
There's a follow-up comment to that, and I haven't really understood that. You said hay fever too. My skin itches and breaks out in hives when I scratch. I don't know if the question is, could that also be due to genetic makeup, pre-colonial era? If you want to clarify that, that would be good.
I wish I could, but it's just so outside of my sphere of understanding that I wouldn't be able to give you the answer you desire.
Yeah. Whilst we wait for others to comment or ask their questions, there's something, and people who have been on these sessions for a while have know my story. So 2 years ago, I started suffering from what the doctors described as idiopathic urticaria, and I saw urticaria hives in when we started talking about the general allergens. Unlike most of those reactions, we could not really tell what was causing it. Well, I guess that's why it's called idiopathic. Idiopathic means unexplained, urticaria. But so I struggled with this for close to 2 years until we had our intervention. So this intervention we had, like I always say, wasn't just for the community. We also participated, and I had a total lifestyle change. All the things I wasn't doing, making sure I was having my 5 a day, exercising. I did a lot of changes to my lifestyle. And it was not until that time that I saw this, these reactions going away. So it's something I talk about. Well, our food allergens are there, but there are some of these ones, the unexplained ones. We just have to put into practice everything we know about healthy lifestyle and healthy living, because that's what happened in my case, because I started by eliminating, of course, I was advised to start eliminating, those foods, the common food allergens, and it wouldn't just go away. It was just there, So now I eat everything, but I'm just doing things the right way, just making sure I have the 5 a day, exercising, portion size. It's just a combination of everything, sleep. So I cannot pinpoint exactly what has resulted in my urticaria going away, but I just know that I don't suffer it anymore. And so I tell people, we just have to have a total lifestyle change. We have to put everything we talk about into practice. I was at a conference last week, the Nutrition Society conference in Sheffield. And not that it's surprising, but we still do know that less than 0.1% of the UK population actually practice or do the stuff that we say in the Eat Well guide.
Wow.
Less than 0.1% of the UK population. So people are aware, they know about what is in the Eat Well guide, but people are just not following it. People just don't follow the guidelines. We know what it means. It's been explained to us several times, but we just don't do it. So I always like to use this as an opportunity to say that there are a lot of things, there are a lot of the diseases we live with. Now I'm going beyond, I'm digressing a bit, a lot of conditions we live with within our community that are preventable.
Yes.
They're preventable because, the risk factors, the modifiable risk factors that could result in these conditions are our diet, physical activity, our lifestyle. And that is why we use these Tuesdays to talk about some of these factors. Because if we do make these little changes, then we can prevent these conditions that we are living with as a community. It's always heartbreaking to hear that we have the highest prevalence of, all these preventable diseases. I wouldn't say food allergens are preventable. That's different, But even in this case, once you've seen your GP and you are told, that's why we had this session, you know what to do. And that Alistair gave us a lot of options as to what to do so that we are not deficient in certain nutrients. So you can still really have all the nutrients from whatever is giving you that allergic reaction by understanding what other options you have. And that's what this session was about. So we are going to share the slides. There's going to be a summary for people who missed it. Please do catch up. Everyone knows one person, who has a food allergy or who has lactose intolerance. We don't have to be deficient in those important nutrients. We do need calcium. We do need vitamin D. We need all of those nutrients, in order for us to be healthy and strong. So, still waiting to see if anyone has any question. If not, I won't go on with my urticaria story, but I like to talk about it because I struggled with it for a long time, and thank God I don't have to experience it anymore. And that's because I think now I do things very well by the book.
Yes.
Alistair, that's my experience. I don't know if you've had anyone come to clinic with a condition like that you just can't help. You've tried all the food allergens and you've done everything you can, but then it's not going away. People just need to change their lifestyle. It's hard for us to do it, but we just have to put in some more effort. Very little steps to having our 5 a day, exercising, enough sleep, enough water. So it's just those little things. Just those little things. Sometimes I feel people don't take it serious because it looks like, they're too ordinary, but then it makes a huge difference. There's a question from YouTube. It says, hi, I have a swelling in one nostril.
An ENT, say it's an allergy.
Yeah.
Yes. Is it possible to have a reaction only in one nostril? Yeah, it is. It's you could have one side of your face swell up. You could have one eyeball swell up. Once that reaction is there and ENT has spotted it, it just means that they found it in good time before it's developed into something more severe, or maybe you haven't had enough of that allergen for it to blow up and become a lot more serious. So, and for ENT to have spotted it as well means that there is high risk of that particular allergen even maybe causing anaphylaxis in future. So take their advice, whatever they tell you to do, take their advice, because it will save your life. Definitely, it will save your life. But yeah, that's a very, very beautiful summary, Dr. Hiba, just about how lifestyle change can actually strongly influence your outcomes, especially from some of the more idiopathic sort of symptoms that come from some of the hidden things in our diet. So, as you were saying, when I was, sort of doing a clinic with younger people, I was noticing a lot of younger people who were struggling with like acne. So, and I'm speaking about real acne with like pus coming out of coming out of some of the spots where it was getting infected. We looked into their diet, and lo and behold, there was a lot of heavily fried foods. There was a lot of really high free sugar items. And all of those foods were, actively, increasing just general inflammation in the body anyway. And actually, by removing some of those things from the diet, we were able to see actually, this decrease in those sort of symptoms, and you're just not giving that particular inflammatory pathology the chance to exacerbate what's happening with acne, what's happening with other hives and things like that as well. So when your diet has a nice healthy base, you're giving your body everything it needs. You're just giving your body every fighting chance it has. So thank you so much for just adding your own personal story, because I think people need to hear personal stories of how lifestyle change can make such a huge difference.
Okay, so I guess that is it from us. We just have 2 minutes, and as I said, we don't have Orlando, but I'd like to remind people listening to us that these sessions are meant to help our community. So if you have any topics in mind, if you have specific topics we haven't addressed, please do send us an email. Send an email to CAHN, send an email to me. Even those social media handles, you can just put those topics, on there, and we will find the experts to come and address the topics for us. We want these sessions to be useful and beneficial to everyone. So please do get in touch. Tell us what you need from us, and we will address these topics for us all. Okay, my final words, and I think Alistair mentioned that we all need to take our vitamin D supplements. So if you are not taking this, please do well to go to the pharmacy, get yourself vitamin D supplements. We should all be taking it.
Oh yeah, all year round. So even in the sun like this, continue taking it. You can get it anywhere, like over the counter, even in supermarkets, and it's all reasonably priced now. And they're not doing it with binders; they're actually doing it on its own. So it can be taken with meals and help to just boost the nutrient capacity of your foods.
Okay. On that note, I'd like to say a very big thank you to Alistair. Very insightful as always, straight to the point. You make it really relatable, like I always say. It's just not the science, but you relate it to practical life, and that is really useful for everyone. So thank you so much, and thank you all of you, because it's a very hot day, the hottest day in the UK, and we still had a few people joining us. So thank you so much. This shows how you value these sessions that we do. CAHN is organizing for us also. Thank you so much. Don't know if Elizabeth or Danielle has anything to say. If not, then that should be it from us.
Thanks for having me again.
Thank you, Alistair, and I'm sure we're going to have you again very soon. I need to say this. Next week, what are we having? Yes, we have something. Sylvia coming to talk to us on something to do with cooking and how this can impact on our health and things like that. So you see the posters out there. So thank you, everyone, and I hope to see you next Tuesday. Thank you, Alistair.
See you.
Keep hydrated.